Hi guys, welcome to this tutorial. Today I'm looking at English Language Paper 2. We're looking at the Summer 19 paper, and I'm looking in this session at question 4, which is the comparison question. As usual, I'm going to work under the assumption you've got access to this insert. If you haven't, I will pause it here for you to read through it. There's the second bit of this. Okay, and here. And for source B, got this older text, our 19th century text, which is Hudson's Travels to Patagonia. And there's the bumper of this. And there's the last bit. Okay, so hopefully you pause that and we're able to have a skim through it. Okay, so question 4, we know that this is our comparison question where you're going to need to refer to the whole of the source. Comparing, it's always going to be this focus on perspectives. I mean, I think that they always do use perspectives. It basically means their point of view, their ideas, sometimes their attitudes, sometimes their feelings. And so I think about this question as the how question. The how do writers convey a point of view, a perspective. And so as soon as we think about this as a how question, this means that you must bring in methods. You must bring in the techniques that they use as writers to convey it. This is complicated by the idea that you have to compare. So you are expected to find similarities and differences in those perspectives and the way in which they're conveyed. I always try and start this with a both. What do both writers do? Well, to me in this, both writers realise that they're in danger and that could result in death. So that's going to be my opening point, something to connect them to. Now I might find nuance and I might find difference within this. So within that realization there might be a different perspective, but ultimately in and of itself they do realize that they are in that danger. Okay, so in source A, despite the increasingly frenzied conditions, Ben Fogle was still anticipating getting to daybreak and was hoping it would then get easier. I've used embedded quotes for this. I'm going to then bring in method. So this comparative adjective, so the comparative adjective there is the method, and that's easier. That's easier as the quote. Suggests he believed the situation could improve. This is echoed later when he uses the adjective complacent to describe their slightly naive attitude to safety. So I'm really focusing on his feelings, his perspective, his point of view around this crazy situation they were in the boat at sea. In source B, however, the writer immediately expresses his fearful expectation that the ship would sink. So I've got a clear comparison. Ben kind of believed it might get better. In source B, the writer, no, he thought the ship was going to sink from the off. And so I'm going to look in terms of methods, the vivid personification of the groaning of the steamship and the simile engine throbbing like an overworked heart, show readers that he had no confidence in the ancient and much damaged vessel. Okay, so again, some embedded quotes, and I've got that method, I've got the evidence to back up why I'm saying this. So in personifying technique, method, in personifying it like a living thing, we can visualize something at the end of its life, and we get the sense that the writer believed the boat was going to die. Okay, so really focusing in on that writer and their perspective by analyzing the methods they've used. Ben Fogle highlights the seaworthy nature of his boat. The adjective phrase, brand spanking new, suggests he had a confidence in the boat and possibly explains his complacent attitude. So I'm kind of, again, we've got method and I'm using that to speculate around that perspective. Why did he have that perspective? In direct contrast to this, so I've got here, I'm making sure I'm bringing in comparison. Okay. Comparison here. Hudson states it was unsafe, which surprises readers. His calm, matter-of-fact tone, so I'm all the time sort of evaluating what his perspective and attitude was, makes the ship's sinking seem inevitable, and yet he seems much less fearful than Fogle does. So again, this comparison sustained here. Despite the tempestuous night, Hudson manages to drop into a doze, which suggests that despite his misgivings, he still assumed the boat would survive the storm. So I've got interpretation here, an analysis of this perspective, and I'm sort of offering evidence and ideas as to why he had this perspective. When he realises the situation is dangerous, he writes honestly that his only thought was to save myself. He reflects on the courage of another man who stopped the selfish crew from stealing the lifeboat, and we can infer that Hudson himself was not concerned about saving anyone else. So again, I've got perspective here, really focusing in on that. More methods. The noun phrase only thought indicated he was purely focused on his, in this case, own survival. This is very different from source A. So I'm just flagging up. That in itself isn't a comparison, but I'm flagging it up to an examiner. Whilst Vogel is also afraid and clearly terrified, he is also concerned for his friend. So this is the bit where I'm really comparing. Okay. The metaphor gripped by panic coupled with panicky rhetorical questions, what the hell now, show that he was petrified and felt alone and helpless. These images also show that initially he was almost paralysed with shock and fear. However, Vogel almost immediately worries about James Cracknell. The reported speech, "James," I cried, and the impact sentences, "He was alive, thank God," show both his concern and sheer relief. Really using methods here to analyse and explain what I've learned about Vogel's perspective in this text. The situation was bad enough, but to lose his only friend would have made the situation unbearable. Unlike the writer of Source B, who merely describes the perilous situation, we really are drawn into Vogel's fear and overwhelming emotional reaction. So I've got an embedded quote or so here at the end. I've got one more kind of link and comparison. So hopefully you can see that, you know, methods are really important in this. Look at the ones I've highlighted here. I've probably perhaps missed some out even as well, knowing me. But, you know, you have got to think about what the writer has done and how this is such a how question. How do these methods contribute to our understanding of a point of view? It's hard, but I think the key thing for me around revising and practicing for this is just reading lots and just asking yourself that question. What do they think? What's their point of view at this point? What is this narrator? What is this person? What are they thinking? What are they feeling? What are they going through? Once you've identified that, once you can pick out a perspective, then it becomes easier. Then it's just a case of, right, I know that person's scared. Where's the evidence that they're scared? Okay, I know that person's calm. Where's the evidence that they're calm? So it's about identifying the perspective first and then looking for the methods. And that's the thing that you're going to write about. It's tricky to find comparisons. It is. If you think about it, though, in this response, I've said, right, they're both realising they're in danger. However, there's a difference within that, because Source B, they're immediately worried about it, whereas Source A, no, he's a bit more complacent. He's a bit more blasé even about this. So that's one comparison. I talk about the idea of the fear. That's my other main comparison. They are both worried, but really Hudson is worried about himself and yet is quite calm about it, whereas Vogel, he clearly expresses that fear, but it also isn't just for him, is it? It's for his friend as well. And there's anything else? That's it really. I've done two main comparisons. One about the idea of being in danger, feeling in danger, and one about their fears or lack thereof. So you don't need loads of comparisons, but you do need to identify those perspectives and back them up with the methods and the evidence as you've got here. Okay, guys, I hope that was useful, and I'll see you on the next one.